I recently faced my own worst nightmare. The HOA president showed up at my door with her son and demanded I let him co-own my brand new Lamborghini. And when I refused, he destroyed it. But don't worry, karma had the last laugh, and it was caught on camera. Let's rewind. This car? Matte black. Low. Mean. It didn't just purr, it roared. I spent years grinding for this. Long nights. No weekends. This was in my dream. The day I parked it in the driveway, I just stood there, smiling like a kid on Christmas. My grandpa chuckled. "Son, you look like you just saw heaven with wheels." And he was right. I went to bed that night feeling unstoppable. But the next morning, it all flipped. Ding dong. I opened the door, and there she was. Karen, the HOA overlord. Beside her, her 24-year-old man-child son Bryce, hiding behind her like a goblin that lost his iPad. Karen didn't greet me. She pointed straight at my car. "That is a problem," she hissed. "Excuse me?" Bryce peeked out from behind her, literally drooling. "I am not exaggerating," he whined. "Seeing it every day triggers my depression. It's not fair," Karen added. "As HOA president, I must protect community harmony. We've decided you will share the vehicle for Bryce's mental well-being." I blinked. My jaw hit the floor. This wasn't real. Bryce nodded. He even stepped forward and reached toward my car like he was about to lick it. I stepped back. This wasn't just entitlement. This was insanity. I took a breath and said firmly, "No, absolutely not." Karen narrowed her eyes. "We could add a clause to the HOA bylaws. Exotic cars must be shared for morale. Think of it as community service." That's when I knew this wasn't going away quietly. Let me tell you about Grandpa. Old school. Worked with his hands. Sweat and steel kind of guy. He always said, "You earn what you want, and you protect what you earn." That car? It wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of grit, of every time I didn't give up. And now, these clowns wanted a piece of it just because they felt like it. I slammed the door. Next day, I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. I ran outside, and there was Bryce, swinging a baseball bat into my windshield, laughing, screaming, "You should have shared it." My blood boiled, but I didn't swing back. I turned to the camera on the garage. Security footage? Crystal clear. I called the cops. Minutes later, blue and red lights. Bryce tried to run. Didn't get far. He tripped on a garden gnome. Poetic justice. Karen showed up, screaming, "He's just a boy. He's 24. The officer replied, handcuffing him. Charges? Vandalism. Property damage. Harassment. The best part? That security footage went viral in our neighborhood group. Every neighbor saw the truth. Even the HOA board turned on her. Now, Karen's off the board. Bryce is banned from community events. And me? I got the car fixed, upgraded the security, and now I keep a backup gnome, just in case. And every time I start that Lambo up, that deep rumble reminds me. Earn it. Defend it. Never let clowns take what you've worked for. And that's when everything exploded. Karen's face turned red, like tomato left in the sun. Red. "This is obstruction," she screeched, waving her bogus papers in the air like a villain in a courtroom drama. But before she could spew more HOA nonsense, my grandpa stepped forward, quiet, calm, the way old school legends do. "Ma'am," he said, voice like steel wrapped in gravel, "you best put that paper down before you make the biggest mistake of your life." Bryce whimpered, clutching Karen's elbow like a toddler in a thunderstorm. Mom, I don't think this is gonna work. And then, I kid you not, Joel stepped out of the guest house. Yeah, that Joel. The quiet tenant who rarely left his place. Turns out, Joel wasn't just some bookish dude who liked privacy. Joel was a federal judge. Yup. Full robes, courtroom gavel, the works. What's going on here? He asked, eyeing the scene like it was a bad episode of a reality show. Karen scoffed. This is none of your business. Joel didn't even blink. Oh, but it is. I recognize that form you're waving. And it's not a city order. That's a mock-up, an illegal fabrication. The tow truck guy suddenly looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Whoa, hey, look, I didn't know anything. I'm just here for the tow. Joel held up his phone. Then I suggest you unhook that vehicle and leave. Right now. Or the next tow you're part of will be to county jail. The driver backed off, hands raised. No problem, no problem. He scrambled into the truck and pulled away so fast he ran over a curb. Karen, still frozen, turned to Joel. You can't talk to me like that. But Joel just tapped his phone again. Let's see what the local sheriff thinks. 15 minutes later, sirens. 2 cruisers rolled up, lights flashing, tires screeching. Officer stepped out, and Karen actually took a step back. Bryce disappeared behind her like a vampire dodging sunlight. The officer in charge looked at Joel, nodded, then turned to Karen. Ma'am, we've had several complaints from this address. You're going to need to come with us to answer some questions. What? I'm the president of the HOA. Karen screamed. And now you're under investigation for impersonating a government document, the officer said. Let's go! And just like that, Karen and Bryce were escorted away, her shouting something about community values, Bryce still pouting like someone stole his Lunchables. Grandpa exhaled. Uncle Mitch fist-pumped. Joel went back to his guest house like nothing happened. And me? I stood there next to my car, a big, stupid grin spreading across my face. Not because I'd won, but because I'd earned this victory. Just like I'd earned the car. And no HOA tantrum, no spoiled man-child, no fake documents were going to take that from me. Moral of the story? Work hard. Protect what's yours. And when they come for your dream, fight back harder. Because sometimes, a Lamborghini isn't just a car. It's a trophy. And no one gives away trophies to people who didn't win the race. While Karen was distracted trying to shoo Uncle Mitch away from her rose bushes like he was a helmeted gopher on a mission, I took a closer look at the paper she was waving around. It looked official at first glance. Stamps, legal jargon, all the usual intimidation tactics. But something didn't sit right. One font didn't match. The city seal was oddly faded. The paper quality? Off. Years of reviewing contracts and reading the fine print had trained my eyes to spot red flags, and this paper? It was practically a fireworks show of inconsistencies. My grandpa, watching me from the porch, saw the shift in my face. What is it, son? He asked in that calm, grounded voice of his. This order, I said quietly. It's fake. Completely fake. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen bending HOA rules anymore. This was outright criminal. If she'd forged official city documents, this wasn't about my car. It was about power, control, and something much bigger. Something dangerous. I realized arguing wasn't enough. HOA meetings wouldn't fix this. I needed proof, real, hard evidence. No more reacting. It was time to play smart. So I turned to her, loud enough for the tow truck guy to hear. You better be absolutely sure that paper's legit. Because if it's not, I let the thread hang in the air. The tow guy, who had probably seen his fair share of angry car owners, suddenly looked a lot more alert. Karen's smug smile twitched. Bryce just looked confused, his bottom lip starting to wobble. That night, I ordered a set of high-end security cameras, tiny but powerful, and invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. I wasn't going to wait for another attack. I was going to be ready. But as I installed them, one thought haunted me. If Karen was willing to forge documents just to remove a car out of spite, what else was she capable of? This wasn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. This felt like the beginning of something deeper and darker. I covered every angle, the driveway, front yard, and even part of the street that gave a clear view of Karen's place. I told no one. Not even Uncle Mitch, who would have shown up in a camouflage suit and night vision goggles. Bless his heart. Days passed. Karen gave me the death glare every time she drove by. Bryce sulked around his yard, doing his best impression of a kicked puppy. I started to think maybe the scare had worked. Maybe they'd backed off. I should have known better. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected in the driveway. I bolted upright, heart racing, and opened the app. There he was, Bryce, skulking across my lawn like he was on some secret mission in a low-budget spy film. Hoodie up, head down, he crept forward with something in his hand, a can of spray paint. I was furious. He was really going to do it. Again. My thumb hovered over the "Call Police" button. But I waited. I needed more. I needed the full picture. He reached the Lamborghini. For a second, he just stood there. He even reached out, as if to gently touch the hood, then pulled his hand back. For a wild moment, I almost felt pity. He looked less like a criminal, and more like a lost kid about to make a huge mistake. But then he shook it off, took a breath, raised the can. Right then, another alert flashed. A different camera. Across the street, a car pulled up, quiet, no headlights. Someone stepped out. From Karen's house, another figure appeared. They met. No words, just a briefcase for a thick envelope. Quick, secretive, and very, very shady. It had nothing to do with my car, but it chilled me to the bone. Meanwhile, Bryce had made his move. A long, ugly yellow line across the hood of my Lamborghini. And that was it. I hit the button. Floodlights exploded to life. A siren I'd installed screamed across the night. Bryce screamed louder, dropped the can, tripped over his own feet, and bolted like he'd seen a ghost. I saved everything. Every frame. Bryce? That was an easy win. I could go to the police right now. He'd be arrested, Karen would be disgraced, and justice would be served, at least on paper. But that other video? That was something else. Bigger. Scarier. Karen wasn't just a nosy HOA president anymore. She was involved in something that required secret deals in the dead of night. That briefcase? That envelope? It all screamed one word. Corruption. The next morning, the yellow paint was still there. My anger hadn't faded. But neither had the questions. I could go for the quick win. Get Bryce arrested. Embarrass Karen. But what if I was only scratching the surface? What if the real story, the real danger, was still hiding behind that suburban smile and those HOA rules? My grandpa listened as I laid it all out that morning. Every detail. He didn't speak right away. Because he knew. This wasn't just about paint. This wasn't just about a car. This was about uncovering the truth, no matter how deep the rot went. "Son," Grandpa said, squinting into the distance like an old cowboy about to drop a life lesson. "Sometimes the easy road ain't the right road. And sometimes, when you see smoke, you gotta find the fire, even if it's not in your own backyard. Especially if it might spread." Boom. That line hit me like a gut punch. Suddenly, this wasn't about my Lamborghini anymore. This was about all of us. What if Karen wasn't just power tripping? What if she was doing something actually illegal? Something that could wreck lives, especially the quiet, kind neighbors around us, the elderly, the single parents, the families scraping by? I felt it deep in my chest. Protect mode activated. I dropped a hint to Uncle Mitch about Karen being involved in shady stuff. His eyes lit up like he'd just discovered buried treasure. Shady stuff? I knew it. She's probably running a secret squirrel fighting ring, or she's a spy. A very cranky, badly dressed spy. Let's gear up. I've got night vision goggles. He ran inside and came out holding what looked like something from a rejected military catalog. They turn everything green, he whispered dramatically. But squirrels, crystal clear. Probably spies too. I politely declined. I needed evidence. Real evidence. Not green-tinted squirrel surveillance. So I focused in. I rewatched the footage from the night of the spray paint attack. My cameras had caught something even stranger than Bryce's disastrous attempt at vandalism. A dark sedan. No plates. No headlights. A guy in a low-pulled hat. Professional. Slick. Not some amateur thug. This wasn't petty HOA drama anymore. This felt like something deeper. Dirtier. I started digging. Public records. Business filings. Parking permits. I went full detective mode. My laptop was a glowing war room. Red string on a corkboard level obsession. Then, boom, I found something. Karen had visited a sketchy-looking office building across town. The kind of place that says, Acme Holdings LLC, on a broken sign and screams, "This is a shell company," louder than a Vegas slot machine. She dropped off files. Left empty-handed. Super SUS. I traced Acme Holdings. Registered to a P.O. box. Fake names on the board. Total smoke screen. But then, I struck gold. One tiny name. A minor shareholder in an old filing from years ago. Guess what? That guy had also done paving work for our HOA. And it wasn't cheap. Suddenly it clicked. Karen wasn't just power tripping. She might be funneling HOA money into companies she had secret ties to. Kickbacks. Fake invoices. Dirty deals. This wasn't just paint on a car. This was fraud. Embezzlement. And we were all paying the price. Especially the older folks on our street. The sweet couple next door who lived off Social Security. The war vet down the block. These people couldn't afford to be robbed by a corrupt HOA president hiding behind spreadsheets and fake smiles. I started pulling old HOA budget reports, buried in jargon, full of confusing line items. But now I had a name. Acme Holdings. And suddenly, all the puzzle pieces started falling into place, like a house of cards in reverse. Overpriced paving jobs. Questionable. Consulting fees. Emergency funds that went unaccounted for. And Karen? She'd buried the truth under layers of HOA technicality and legal smoke. But no more. The upcoming annual HOA budget meeting was the one chance to shake the whole thing loose. Not just to confront her, but to expose her. Not for me. Not for revenge. For justice. Because when someone tries to build an empire on lies in your neighborhood, you either stay quiet, or you fight back. And I was done staying quiet. I wasn't just uncovering petty HOA drama anymore. I had proof. Of fraud. Of abuse. Of manipulation. And the worst part? Bryce wasn't just a spoiled punk. He might have been drugged by his own mom. Yeah. Let that sink in. I zoomed in on my footage again. And there it was. Clear as day. Karen. A pill. Bryce. Reluctant. Then boom. Slumped over like a rag doll. And just minutes later, Karen walks out like nothing happened. to exchange a briefcase with a stranger. Tell me that's not shady. Bryce wasn't some criminal mastermind. He was a pawn. A messed up, whiny, spray paint happy pawn. But still, a pawn. Used by someone way more dangerous, his own mother. And what did that mean for the tow company? The forged paperwork? The insane invoices? It meant Karen wasn't just some nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. She was running a full-blown HOA hustle. Fake charges. Shell companies. Possibly stealing people's cars and flipping them for profit like it was some sick garage sale from hell. I had one shot. The annual HOA meeting. 1 week away. I wasn't going to just complain. I was going to explode this thing from the inside out. I spent the week like a true crime detective mixed with a YouTuber planning the biggest expose of the year. White heavy check mark, I pulled invoices. White heavy check mark, I took stills from the videos. White heavy check mark, I even edited together a clip showing Karen giving Bryce the pill, just enough to raise suspicion without ruining his life. This wasn't about humiliation. This was about justice. For every resident she'd bullied. Every dollar she'd misused. And yes, even for Bryce. Grandpa? He just gave me a nod. That kind of nod old school men give when they know you're walking into a storm, but you're doing it for the right reason. Uncle Mitch? Oh, he was ready to launch pigeons into the meeting room. Tactical pigeons. I told him no. But also, maybe. Finally, the big night came. The HOA clubhouse? Packed. More than I'd ever seen. Word was out. This meeting wasn't going to be about tree trimming. Karen strutted up like she was Queen HOA. Fake smiling. Wearing pearls. Sitting next to her hand-picked puppet of a replacement. Even Bryce was there, slouched in the back. Eyes dull. Lips pressed shut. He didn't look like a threat. He looked like someone who'd been silenced. The meeting kicked off with the usual. Minutes from last meeting, blah blah budget, lies stacked on lies. Then, it was my moment. I stood up. Madam President, I said, calm, steady. Before we move on to new business, I have some urgent matters for the homeowners. Her smile cracked. Her eyes? Laser beams. Mr. Henderson, if this is about your vehicle, it's about a lot more than my vehicle, Karen. The room gasped when I used her first name. I laid it out. Step by step. Like a YouTube series unfolding in real time. The vandalism. The fake towing order. The financial records. The $100,000 plus to Acme Holdings. The briefcase exchange. Then the pill. The footage. Karen's face turned tomato red. This is slander, she shouted. Then explain this, I said, and I played the video. Bryce. The pill. Karen. Walking out with her purse. The handoff. Boom. Silence. And then, the tow truck guy, stood up, trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. She told me the car was abandoned, he said. Said the paperwork was real. But then, she started asking me to find other cars too, ones that wouldn't be missed. Dead silence. Karen tried to speak, but no words came. Her board members? Suddenly super fascinated by the ceiling. Her hand-picked replacement? Looked like she wanted to vanish into the chair. This wasn't a meeting anymore. It was a takedown. A community uprising. And Karen? Was at the center of the fire she thought she could control. It was like the dam had finally cracked. I stood, eyes fixed on Karen, and said, cold, clear, and loud enough for every person in that clubhouse to hear. This isn't about you harassing homeowners you don't like anymore. You're running scams, forging documents, embezzling HOA funds. And what about this? I tapped the remote. The video rolled. Bryce, hooded, spray can in hand. A sickly yellow line slicing across my Lamborghini. Gas shot through the room like ripples on water. People turned in their seats. Bryce crumbled where he sat, hiding his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. Karen shot up. "He's a sensitive boy," she screeched. "You provoked him with that ostentatious car." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Sensitive?" I said, cool as a blade. "Or conditioned?" Then I made the hardest choice of the night. Without a word, I played a short, edited clip, barely a few seconds. Karen. "A pill." Bryce. Then slumped shoulders. A blank stare. No narration. Just footage. And then silence. A long, stunned, stifling silence. Every eye turned to Karen. Then to Bryce. He was crying now. Openly. A broken boy caught in a storm he couldn't control. And I felt it, just for a moment, something like sympathy. He wasn't the monster. He was the outcome. A son warped by his mother's rot. And that moment, it broke everything. The room erupted. People stood shouting. Demands flew through the air like arrows. "Resign! You lied to us! You drugged your own kid!" Karen's carefully groomed board candidate looked like he might faint. The rest of the board members were scrambling, denying, disowning, disconnecting from her as fast as they could. And Karen? She just sat there. Rage carved across her face. Disbelief in her eyes. Her empire, falling apart live and in color. The voices rose. The scene spiraled. It wasn't chaos. It was reckoning. My heart thundered in my chest, but underneath it all was something deeper, a cold, quiet satisfaction. Not vengeance. Not triumph. Justice. And not just for me, for every neighbor she'd hurt. But what came next? That was the real storm. Balance scale aftermath. The crashing of the Queen. Karen's fall wasn't slow. It was immediate. Homeowners started calling the police, right there, in the clubhouse. Within minutes, 2 officers walked in. Calm. Serious. Ready. Statements were taken. Evidence shown. I handed over copies of everything, the invoices, the security footage, the clip of her and Bryce. Karen tried to spin it. Said I was staging a coup. Said I manipulated her son. But the room didn't believe her anymore. Not after what they'd seen. The officers weren't buying it either. Within days, the charges were official. Fraud. Embezzlement. Forgery. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The tow truck driver, broke instantly. He made a deal. Turned out Karen had pushed him to tow vehicles all over the county. Ones she claimed were in violation, but were really just targets. Her plan? A shell company. A vehicle resale scam. Acme Holdings wasn't her partner. It was her. Brain Bryce, the lost son. Bryce? He wasn't let off the hook, but the law showed mercy. There was evidence he'd been manipulated, possibly even drugged. The DA opted for therapy, counseling, and mandatory community service. That included scrubbing the graffiti off my Lamborghini, under watchful eyes. And when I saw him there, struggling with a pressure washer, small and silent in a borrowed jumpsuit, I didn't feel pride, just sadness. He was never the enemy. He was the damage. And maybe, with help, he could become something more than his mother's shadow. House rebirth of a neighborhood. Karen's HOA crumbled. But in its ashes, something better began to grow. An interim board stepped up, homeowners who actually cared. They launched a full audit, recovered funds, rewrote every one of Karen's oppressive rules. Grandpa? He joined the new architectural committee. Common sense, he said, not Karen sense. Uncle Mitch? He dubbed himself Chief of Neighborhood Morale and started weekly ice cream socials. He also launched a mailbox decoration contest, which got weird fast, but people loved it. For the first time in years, the street felt alive. People waved again, spoke, smiled. The fear was gone. Race a car and me? My Lambo got a full professional repaint. Looked better than ever. I even installed a custom garage cam with AI alerts. And I added a small, polite sign. This car was earned through hard work. If you want one, try it yourself. Compass lessons from a black Lambo. That whole ordeal taught me something I didn't expect. Justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about exposing the truth, rebalancing what was warped, standing not just for yourself, but for everyone afraid to speak. Karen abused power. She hurt people. She warped her son. And if I hadn't fought back, she would have kept going. Sometimes real justice starts with a broken car and a neighbor who thought she could get away with everything. But in the end, she got exactly what she gave.